Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Just gotta accept the recording
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Okay, so yeah, am I good to go?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so hi everyone. I am the founder of Leading Learners, and we actually are hiring for a part-time remote role. So feel free to just, do a quick Google search and head over to our careers page, and feel free to submit an application. But today I am just going to kind of give a brief presentation that I feel like has helped many hackathons. And it will kind of explain my story as to how, I started something that could have been a project and really grew it into something much larger. So I will just present this in full screen. Okay. Is it in full screen? Just if someone can give me an okay.
Yep, it's full screen.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is just a quick little presentation about turning your idea into reality. So, I feel like at hackathons, many people do create projects that honestly I have seen, and being at, several hackathons could really grow into something much larger. So I hope that in this quick presentation, I can kind of give you some steps and also some insight into my experience as well. So first I'll talk, a lot about this presentation outline. I'll talk a little bit about myself, some background inspiration, as to why I started my company, a quote to reflect on, which leads to finding the right people, strengths and weaknesses when I was starting off, and then resources to establish this project that you may make at this hackathon or several others come in the future. So first, a little bit about myself. So if you have any questions, during this presentation or after, I will definitely try to get this under, 20, 15 even minutes so that I can answer any questions for, another 30 minutes after. But as the intro said, my name is Galicia Gordon. I am the founder at Leading Learners. And just to kind of sum us up, we are an educational technology company that basically likes to take a centralized approach at student resources. So really tying together, everything a student can need onto a singular platform. Another quote, sorry, like a little statistic that could have, been of use for any of you, but we did have a, scholarship section that we were really active on during that 2020 to 2021 year. And we were able to promote over $3 million in scholarships in that first year. And then as for programs, at the bottom, I did include some, but I didn't want to get into like all of these various, hackathons or business competitions I was a part of. So if you have any questions about generally, getting involved in mentorship or judging, feel free to let me know, or any specific that you see on the screen as well. So that's a little bit about me, but now let's speak about what we do. So we did actually rebrand quite a lot. So this is kind of an outdated presentation. But like I mentioned at the start, we basically like to take a centralized approach at student resources. And so we, just because it may be of inspiration for you guys trying to grow a project of your own, we like to categorize these into 3 categories. So, usually with any sort of company, I would say that they typically have 3 to 5 focus points. That can be different for you. You can just have one, but it may be of inspiration for you. So resources, we like to consider that, materials, that students can use, such as databases. And then materials section, we consider that to be more so tangible items like classroom posters, organizational planning sheets. I know many students loved our organizational planning sheet that allows them to bottleneck their post-secondary decisions. So that was very useful for many students. And then tools, we consider that to be more so our static resources. So anything like study timers, 1 to 2 minute video guides, things like that, to help students along. And again, we completely actually rebranded. You can check us out if you do a quick Google search. So thank you. I saw like a comment said, I like the graphics. Thank you. But we actually did rebrand. So I hope you like them even better now. Okay, so now I want to speak about, background, because I think all of you are students right now. So I want to speak about, what actually inspired me to say, hey, let's turn this little project into something larger. So, there were 3 things that allowed me to just say, let's pursue this. So the first one was a little bit personal. I feel like everyone has some personal incentive whenever they're growing anything. Growing up from a diverse background in my family, I had people speaking completely Spanish, some French, and no English at all. So my parents were spending like hundreds of dollars for me to attend these different tutoring services. And I knew that I didn't want other students to have to go through that. Secondly, inching on to the second to last year of high school, I still didn't even know at all what I wanted to do. Even if after, I did further education, I just really wasn't sure at all what I would do. And then lastly, that final like determining factor, I would say, was that having a lot of peer pressure and then family pressures when making that career decision allowed me to just say, hey, why isn't there a platform where students could come on and find every single thing they could possibly find and not have to worry about that huge financial weight on their back, where they just have, a simple pricing plan, or, they can always resort to a free plan and, continue with their studies. So that's kind of why I launched. And then for reasons why I keep going, and it relates to all of you here right now, which is when you launch anything, you'll get to see that impact. So now launching us, we have definitely impacted tens of thousands of students, but I've learned that there are not only, myself and maybe closest friends who have the same problem that I did, but, tens of thousands of students across the world have the same problem that I did as well, starting the company. Second, and all of you will kind of relate to this if you do decide to scale your projects, was that I learned to honor my pace, and I feel much more happier, every day knowing where I want to be. And that definitely being within the intersection between ed tech and business. And then lastly, feedback and student stories. So if you're launching anything, I put a little asterisk next to feedback, because whenever you're launching anything, I feel like you are creating a service or product, or online, whatever it is that you are creating, that is serving a group of people. So I think it's very important to receive feedback from those people that you are serving directly. So now I want to get into finding the right people. This is a quote that I bring up about in almost every workshop I've ever given. And it's a quote by Meredith Mahoney, who once said, "Know where you want to go and make sure the right people know about it." I feel like I discovered it maybe 3-ish months in actually pursuing this idea. And for some reason, it still sticks with me like to this day, because starting off, it was just myself and my CO for maybe, I want to say 5 months before we even said, let's, open up some applications to take people on, even if it was like volunteering or, now paid jobs. We were just, confidently running this, and we were like, yes, we can do this, no need to worry. But then we saw that with the right people, we were able to scale and grow so much more. So a question that I get asked, and I'm sure many people might ask this after, so I want to answer right now, which is, how do you find the right people? Like, I created a great project. I think it can go well and really far, but I don't really know how I can find those great people to take on board. So I'm going to give you like 5 ways here, just on this presentation, but of course there are several other ways. So starting off with closer friends, I usually like to say that I won't ask, closer friends for advice on an action I should take. Usually I'll just take that action, then after ask them for input. And the reason why I do this is because with many of your closest friends, they've probably been with you the entire time you've been building out your project, your business, or whatever it is, and they're not able to get, a fresh perspective, a new eye on things. So when you take a new action, then your friends can see something that, is new. It's something fresh that they can see and say, wow, I can give perspective and a different, eye on this. Second, reaching out through other people. So feel like you're not that confident, which was myself. Like, I wouldn't expect myself to be speaking. Well, now I'm on the East Coast right now temporarily, but it's late at night. I wouldn't expect myself to be speaking right now. But if you feel like you're not that confident, you can have a singular person on your team reach out for you and do rather take care of all of those external relations. Third, connecting with program participants. So, SFU StormHacks, incredible way, I will tell you that right now, to connect with like-minded students. But also, online events like hackathons, business competitions. So many STEM initiatives online nowadays are an amazing way to find those great people just to take on board initially or for the long term. I want to end off these last 2 points with learning from your elders and educators' lessons. And these are kind of less common, but I would say that throughout, my trajectory of my education, I learned that not many students took advantage of the fact that educators are more than willing, for the most part, willing to sit down and just, answer questions for 15 to 30 or minutes or so to ask about their experiences or what their perspectives are on, the trajectory of your career or your project or whatever it is. And with elders, I feel like many people say that, the older people in our life have the best experiences, but they also have the most, having lived twice or triple your age at times. So I'm going to end off with strengths and weaknesses when I was starting off, and then some resources so that all of you can grow your ideas just starting off. First one for sure is when you have a close-knit community, everyone can really grow. I would recommend that. Second, we focused on our target audience directly and receive support from them from the start. So if you're launching anything, try to get to those people that you're supporting directly as much as you can. 3, we knew of things that we could not control from the beginning. we knew that we could control how many students we reached through surveys from the beginning by just doing more surveys, but we knew that we couldn't control how counselors or educators were approaching us despite the students on our platform and the support. Lastly, a strong foundation of values and a strong mission statement. So a strong mission statement whenever you're launching any project or startup company, whatever it is, allows you to push forward, when those times do get tougher. Then for weaknesses, a little bit embarrassing, but also very vulnerable at the same time. So the first one here was just a lack of, confidence. So I believe that honestly, the lack of confidence was due to that second point, which was not having that professional front and established, brand. So what I recommend for many people is that if you want to have a more professional front, if you want to establish that brand, to create one-pager guides. So we still have these one-pager guides that we've created maybe over a year ago that we still do reference when people do ask us common questions, by email. And so these one-pager guides really do help you or your team to answer common questions people may ask. And then lastly, very embarrassing, but as myself who loves tech, we didn't have a project management software for maybe a few months starting off. Very embarrassing, I will admit that. But if you can just get a basic, Notion page, Asana, Google Drive, anything really just to keep everything like documents and projects and tasks all together, very, very useful. So I'm going to end off before I answer any questions and tell you anything else you need to know with some resources. So on the logistical side, I want to start off by saying that when you're building your team, try your best to consider that time as, team bonding as well. So we really love to learn how people love to work, what their interests and passions are, what they could contribute, what their weaker ends were from the beginning. And I feel like that really allowed us to stay very connected. Second, if you can, and I feel like most people can, doesn't matter what your target audience is, you can spend time researching your target audience, and what their struggles are, their issues are that you can solve more than the potential outcomes. So the reason why I say this is that not many people know this, but starting off, my initial goal was to reach 500 students. Very silly. I know that. No need to point that out. So I said that number because I said, let's think about a typical graduating class. There are typically 250 students. Let's double that. Very silly of me, very silly of me. But the reason why we're in the tens of thousands, I want to say, is because I, from the very beginning, focused on student struggles, not how many students we reach or how many monthly active users or how many students we can onboard within this much time. Not at all. I was really focusing on student struggles right now. And, especially during the pandemic, that really was important to us. And lastly, if you're not, so I wrote if you're not, because if you're not a student, launching like a, service for students, it might be a little bit difficult to understand. But if you're, launching something, I think that it's very important to put yourself in that consumer or customer persona's shoes. So imagine yourself like as that person going through your platform or service and how they would probably interact with it. You can either get them to directly or just imagine what they would probably click to first, what they would want to find out about you directly, and try to imagine yourself in their shoes. And then ending off with some tools just so you guys can further get started. So a common question I get asked is like, what if you don't know anything about business? And what if I just want to learn the very basics, ahead of time? So I usually recommend Patriot as a really great accounting management software, but their catalog of blogs and infographics are amazing. I think that they're at patriotsoftware.com. And you can really learn the basics of, business in the areas of accounting, management, software, and team communication. So I would recommend that. And then Canva, I know many people know Canva is a great accessible design platform. But what I like to recommend from Canva is two things. So one, if you feel like you don't have that much money, starting off, that you can print out your designs, whether you make them on their software or on Canva directly, on paper, cardstock, and t-shirts for really a relatively low cost if you're just starting off and want to get some merch or, swag for your team. And then second, brainstorming sheets on Canva are something that I would say is very, very, very underestimated. So what we used to do a lot, now we don't do it as much, but we used to have these 30-minute to 40-minute, 45-minute brainstorming sessions. I would pair like a playlist ahead of time and we would all hop onto a singular Canva page at the same time. and just release all our thoughts on a topic. And that allowed us to get so many new ideas coming in. So I would recommend that for you and your team that you may be growing your project with. And then lastly, digital grants. So as a student, there are so many things that you can get for free or discounted just because you are a student, believe it or not. So I would say take advantage of that. And some good search queries to start off are free tools for students, free student technology in your city, region, country, or you can even look worldwide. Another good search query is tech for good. So just on the top of my mind, I know that there are some discounts for, some larger tech companies. Well, Google and Microsoft, I feel like it may have to be connected to your school, but it does depend. I know Google does have their nonprofit grant if you're planning on launching a nonprofit. And then Crello, Notion, there are many that just come to my mind right now, but there's so many online for sure. So I will just end off with key takeaways and then sit back for any questions. So key takeaways I would say from this presentation is that, first of all, try to find out about your target audience directly and how you can assist them. So rather than focusing on the numbers, like we hadn't, I would say focus on what that target audience problems and struggles are right now, today, or come the future as well. Outreach, so that can be in the form of emails. We love surveys. Any kind of outreach you want to do. Phone calls are super important to get those initial users on board if you're launching a paid service or platform. Third, brand establishment is key. So I recommended the one-pager guides, or overall having some sort of meaning as to why your logo exists or why you use your certain name is really valuable as well to create that community. Try to learn what you can and cannot control early on, and seek feedback on a regular basis. So with feedback, we like to have something that we call a support box, and students, educators, and parents and counselors can just let us know of any feedback that they would like for us to improve, or anything that they would like overall. So I will wait for any questions, but I think I did mention just very briefly at the start that you can check out the link in our Instagram and check out our careers page as well. We are currently taking on technical instructors, and basically, I believe that everyone here right now at this hackathon can definitely apply, because it will be basically teaching students some skills in any technical areas. So that can be how to use a certain software, or how to code your first project, anything that you would like. We're really, really open. So feel free to check out that part-time remote role for sure. Yeah, and that's everything I have. I'll sit back for any questions for sure. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the chat or raise your hand, and then we'll definitely pass them along. Yes, first question in the chat. What does the expansion pack include?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've offered them a lot at some STEM initiatives because we saw how many students really did enjoy it. So essentially, it opens up as a web app, and you can go towards any kind of category that you would like, and it gets into 15 ways as to how you can scale your idea. And usually, like I mentioned, with some STEM initiatives, or even school groups, they found it very useful to be able to grow, something that they maybe created within a weekend long event, or the trajectory of their time at a club, and grow it beyond that time. For sure. And yeah, like I did mention, actually, I think I will put our link to our careers page.
If you guys have any other questions, feel free to definitely drop them in the chat. I think from my understanding, leading learners is giving a prize to all the winners of Pride Track. of like the various prize tracks that we have, as well as offering your own like sponsor challenge. I believe it was like best ed tech prize. So if you could like talk a little bit about like what you have to do like for the sponsor challenge, or kind of like discuss a little bit more about like details of the prize.
Yeah, I will do that for sure, and then I'll get to the questions there.
Oh yes, I kind of want.
Wow, those are like awesome
Yeah.
questions. I'm really looking forward to them. Okay, so quickly, I'll explain our track. So yeah, we did create a track for SFU StormHacks and several other hackathons, but for StormHacks, we decided to stick to what we know best, so that being ed tech. And so with other hackathons, just to give you some general inspiration, many students have created things that honestly we already have, which is like kind of cute, but like, you know, a study timer for students or a productivity tool, a task management software. And when we say ed tech, I know that many people will immediately draw to student help, but we've also seen some projects that would help educators. So things that would simplify their processes within the classroom, and also, you know, counselors or anything within the educational sphere. And yes, we will also be offering the prizes to the top track winners. So even if you don't win our track, completely okay. We are definitely here to support you either way.
Awesome. I think the next question from the chat. What do you see as the future direction of EdTech?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that definitely, you know, there are several educational technology companies and softwares and services that I would say right now they are, you know, kind of head to head with how much we can offer. So I think that right now it would just be creating a really, really strong, you know, value proposition, I would say overall, because you know, I think that right now what students are trying to do, and parents and educators and everyone within that educational community is trying to do right now, is trying to find that one-stop solution. And maybe it's just a one-stop solution, you know, within AP resources. We had Fiveable that did that. Now they, you know, shifted towards study timers, and we have, you know, people like us who are trying to create that singular one-stop solution in all facets of education. And then we also have, you know, some educational technology companies that are helping with a certain area as a one-stop solution, like GrantMe helping with just scholarships. But right now, I'd say I would see it more so shifting towards a one-stop solution for whichever area students may need to focus on. And for us, we would say that's kind of every area, but right now I would say just kind of creating a one-stop solution.
So another question we had from the chat. Did you think you would ever be the founder of a company or startup?
Oh yeah, I think that's a great question. So like I mentioned, we just kind of thought it would be, you know, a project. And I think that's what many people do, you know, start off by saying, but there, you know, there's this amazing healthcare company, I'm not sure if you guys know, based in BC, named Bloom. And like they said, they're sisters and co-founders, and they both started off the company just as a small project. But now, you know, the scale much more larger. So I think that for myself, not necessarily, but I would say that either way, whether it had gone further or not, I still would have seen myself working within that sphere of education or ed tech and business. So whether you launch something and you don't think you can go far, I think you'll still be able to recognize your areas of interest, needless to say.
Awesome. And then another question we had from the chat. What challenges did you have to overcome at the beginning of your journey?
I would say that for sure would be that lack of confidence with outreach. I think that something that helped me a lot with outreach was saying that first, I'm never going to depend on one, you know, outreach initiative to be the, you know, be all say all. I didn't ever depend on one email that would help us grow. I always had, you know, a list of 50 plus. I always start off with 50 plus. It doesn't matter if it's a school outreach initiative or it's, you know, onboarding a classroom. I would always, you know, reach out to 50 plus, no matter what it is. And I think that many people do that for jobs for sure. So if you can just kind of transfer that over, that would be very valuable, because I know that many people, when they're applying to jobs, they're not just applying or depending on one. So if you can get more comfortable with reaching out to people, I think that would be very, very valuable. And that's something that I definitely had to overcome, because I usually was the type of person who would rely on just one thing to make it big, if you will, or grow something really larger of it. So if you can not just depend on one thing, that would be useful. And two, get comfortable with reaching out, because Whenever you meet anyone, especially, startup founders or, founders of companies or CEOs, I think many people need to know that, they initially had your path for the most part, working several internships just to be able to get that initial funding or get that, income starting off. So I honestly am not scared of people no matter what the role is, and no matter how much experience they have. If you can get comfortable with reaching out and also get comfortable with people, just knowing that everyone is a person, I feel like that would help a lot. But that was kind of a struggle at the beginning.
That's also definitely really great advice, just because a lot of us are students and might be looking for our first internships. So like we definitely understand that experience of like multiple like outreaches and applications.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think now that I think about it, actually, many students with schools, I don't think that, at least for my friend group, no one applied to one single school and just depended on one. Usually 3+ is what I've kind of seen as the average. But yeah, definitely having those other options is great.
Awesome. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop them out in chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask yourself directly.
Hi, I'm also curious how you develop the resources that like Leading Learners offers. Like, do you work with educators, or like where do you, how do you source the material?
Yeah, it's a great question. So initially starting off, we were definitely, taking that initiative just on our team's end. And we definitely had a smaller team of just about 10 people. So we were initially doing that resource gathering. And what we had done was, first our own personal uses, whatever we were using at the time. And then also, like you mentioned, with educators, that was like our main form of outreach. So starting at various high schools. And luckily, I feel like most people are here in BC, so that's great. You'll understand me. But, neighboring high schools and universities across BC is what we initially did to gather those initial resources. And now it is by recommendations, either by students themselves or our advising educators as well.
Cool, thanks.
We'll just give it a couple moments, see if you have any other additional questions. So I'm not seeing much pop up in chat, but if you do have another question, feel free to definitely unmute yourself and ask.
I did also want to say, if you don't have any questions right now, it's completely understandable. Usually, with hackathons, I'm going between, my bed and my desk. So I understand that completely. And yeah, I'll always be on Discord for sure, or Socio. Yeah.
I think we had one more other question from the chat. What did you do before founding Leading Learners?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm not trying to direct you to frequently asked questions, but you can go over to our FAQ, and I do have like an fully explained answer, because that is something many people were asking. But before, because I didn't want to have to rely on external funding for at least, a few years, what I had done was working several jobs before. So I did work, many internships, and I wouldn't say they were really technical, honestly, starting off. Like I would do anything that would have just given me that experience. So that would be, within marketing, sales even. And I got to work within some interesting industries, but they were never targeted towards ed tech, which is something that many people do ask. So I did try to just dabble within as many industries as I could before starting something of my own. And I would recommend that for sure.
And then we just had an additional follow-up question. Is there something you would change about your journey?
I feel like I honestly can't think of anything on top of my mind. Maybe I would say probably just not delaying like the time of actually launching something. So yeah, that's a great point actually, and great question, because I spent the 3 months prior to actually launching our initial, basic product. I spent the 3 months prior just spending on surveying students and trying to see, how far the idea could go. And I wouldn't say that those 3 months were wasted, but it kind of spent a lot of time compared to something that I believe could have been done within 2 weeks time, maybe even, a month at maximum. And I would say that that often is like the case for many people, where they spend a lot of time researching. Meanwhile, they could have launched something, even if it's just a minimum, viable product, as they do say, but even if it's just a basic landing page or getting people onboarded for a demo or anything that you can do to just get those initial people on board would have been much more useful than spending a lot of time delaying, either in the form of research or seeing how far the idea could go and being very pensive about the idea. Launching something is what I would recommend for sure.
Awesome. That is definitely pretty solid advice. We'll just wait to see if there are any last minute questions before we wrap up the session. I know it's definitely getting quite late for you. Awesome. I'm not seeing any additional questions in chat. So definitely thank you, Alicia, for your presentation. It was definitely really great to learn a lot more about what Leading Learners does, as well as kind of like your journey kind of reaching at this point. Since they do have a lot of prizes, definitely check out the prize list to learn a little bit more information about what the requirements are for the EdTech track. But if you are interested in other tracks as well, you will also be, if you're a winner for another track, you will also be awarded a prize from Leading Learners. Without much ado, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you so much for everybody for attending.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
So.
Thank you so much.